Hi, welcome back. And this is another episode of
Two Tired
Teachers. Today we are talking about how to work with your paraprofessional. We actually met as a classroom teacher and a paraprofessional that was coming in with the SPED Ed kids. And that's how we start building relationship and friendship.
This is true. Back in the olden days, when I was between college and certification, I actually also worked as a paraprofessional, and in those days it was called a teacher's aide.
Mm-hmm.
So that tells you how far back it was. It was in the early 80s, and it was called a teacher's aide.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in a different kind of a situation where it wasn't a regular classroom, but it was a lab setting. So it was the beginning of reading and math labs back in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was the teacher's aide in the reading lab. And a lot has changed from the time that I was a teacher's aide till now, where we have paraprofessionals. Again, this is how we met, so we felt like this was something that needed to be talked about. And before I let Ruby take this conversation over, I read a few different blogs, and I was amazed at how many teachers have issues with their paraprofessionals, because we didn't have that experience.
No.
However, I know I've heard other teachers who have like horror stories about paraprofessionals, and I just don't think that should be a thing.
It should not be a thing at all.
So let's talk about that.
So I think that your best friend when it comes to the help with the kids in your classroom should be your paraprofessional. Majority of the times the paraprofessionals already know the kids, especially if they're special education paraprofessionals. They are usually attached to the kids, and by the time they come in the classroom, they already have built a very good relationship with those kids. They know what the kids, how the kids are, what they need, how they need it. They already have established relationship with the parents. And majority of the times, those paraprofessionals already have idea of what are the accommodations for these kids coming in the classroom. So probably the best source of information will be that paraprofessional. And with time, the paraprofessional becomes a big expert, because that's another thing. They go in different levels and in different classrooms. They see a lot of different styles of teaching. They can be very, very helpful in the classroom. I just think it's how you accept them and how do you see them.
That's true. And she's speaking more about special ed type paraprofessionals, and we also know that there are just general paraprofessionals. And like she said, they could be some of your best allies. I'm just thinking about me personally being able to have a paraprofessional in the classroom. I'll use Rumi as an example. She was one of many paraprofessionals that I was able to have in my classroom. I used her as a co-teach type model many times, because there were times when I would explain something, I would show models, we do it, and kids still didn't understand it, and I would just look at her and go, you do it, you do it, because obviously they don't understand the way that I'm giving it to them. They're not getting my model, so maybe they'll get it better from you. And so I would just turn over the whole class to her, and I'd be the paraprofessional while she explained something that obviously they didn't get from me, and it worked out most of the times. We didn't have any issues with that.
No.
And I also knew that rather than have her just come in and stand and watch me teach, and her really do nothing, that I needed to use her. So when she came in, maybe I'm doing a mini lesson or something, get that over with so that we could break into small groups and she could have a group to work with while I'm having a group to work with, so that we can get everybody the individualized help that we could get. So I think a lot of the issues that I've read about and that I've heard about as far as paraprofessionals go, it has a lot to do with how the teacher structures their class. Because at the end of the day, during the time, and I'm going back and forth, but at the end of the day, during the time when I had Rumi as my paraprofessional, she had more education than me. So I couldn't walk around there and act like, oh, I'm the more educated person in the building, when she actually had a master's in math, and at the time I didn't have one. She was far more educated than me. She's a certified teacher. She was just certified in other countries.
Yes.
She just wasn't certified in the United States. So my math education basically didn't line up to her math education. So I felt 100% comfortable saying, you're the master of math at this point. You take over this class and you help them understand what I'm trying to say. So I recognize that, knowing I don't know everything, and sometimes kids just need to hear it from a different voice.
And I had the different ways because I had the experience in how math is presented in other countries and in other methods. But I love going to her classroom because it was so amazing to see her teaching, and I was kind of getting her ideas. And the simple fact that she will allow me to, okay, so now we're putting together, for me was, I saw her teaching, I got your ideas, I know what you're doing, now let me try and put it in practice and work. That was a blessing for me. It was kind of introductory to, here you go, you can do it, but I always felt welcome in your classroom. I always felt that I'm a co-teacher, not somebody that just sits over there and takes almost nothing, And I was eager to help you with the kids because those became my kids too.
Right.
The other experience that I had, it was in pre-K, and it was kind of the same situation. I was received with open arms, and it was very interesting to see how that teacher came to the point where it's like, I don't know what I'm doing, you have more experience, go in and do that. Now I understand that in our case I already came in with the experience, but it will be majority of the times with the paraprofessionals. Why we are both saying paraprofessionals? They do have the experience, they know different ways of teaching because they're seeing all these teachers. They're absolute treasure box for me. Treasure box. You just have to accept this is an equal rank educator.
Right. So I would say for those of you who might be out there who are having issues understanding what to do with your paraprofessional, I would suggest that you, one, look up the duties of a paraprofessional, because I think part of the problem is a lot of people don't even understand what are even our duties, and have a clear understanding of what their duties are comprised of. You can go on to, which I actually looked up, go on to the United States Education Department website. It clearly lays out the duties of a paraprofessional, and then I'm sure whatever your district is, they have some responsibilities. I'm sure your school, if you have a IS specialist type person, a coach, or even your principals, APs, should be able to give you a list of duties of what are the responsibilities of parents. What I find interesting is that nowadays, parents have a lot of education, because some districts are not even hiring people unless they've had some level of formal education. And I know in our district now, they have to pass a test before they can even be considered for the job. So don't think that you just have a novice person walking in off the street that really doesn't know anything as far as education, or doesn't have an education. Paraprofessionals are as educated as we are. We just have to get ourselves organized in a way
Yes.
so that we can utilize them better.
Interesting that you mentioned the certification for paraprofessionals. It's actually required to be a paraprofessional in the classroom, and you actually have to go through a training and take a test to get to the certification program, which is obviously not the same as the teacher certification program, but you have to pass a certain amount of courses so you can go in. The other thing that it was very interesting for me when I looked at the researches for the last 5 years, majority of the paraprofessionals now, those are teachers, people that are trying to get the teacher's position. So they are getting their education and working at the same time in education. So do not assume that those are people that they don't know what they're talking about or they don't have the preparation. Or the other part that was very interesting to me is that there is a very big percentage, actually 46% of paraprofessionals, they already have at least bachelor's degree. And of these 46%, 38% are with bachelor's degree, but they're from another country.
Yeah.
So they're doing the whole process of redoing their certification and everything, but they're already they're advanced in education and they know what they're doing. They have the explicit knowledge of what they're doing. They can be big resource.
Right. So what are some things that we can do as teachers so that we're better prepared to deal with a paraprofessional?
First of all, recognize what you have to do as a teacher, what is your responsibility, and what is the responsibility of the paraprofessional. The paraprofessional is not responsible for planning, but you can involve them in the planning. If you build a relationship with a paraprofessional. The paraprofessional is not responsible for a lot of the behavior problems, but they can become a very, dealing with the behavior problems, I want to say, but they can become very good support staff when it comes to that.
Now I want to stick a caveat in that.
Oh.
Now if the paraprofessional has been specifically named in the IEP as the person that's going to track for, say, a behavior contract or that kind of thing, that's a whole nother ball game. But if you happen to have a teacher, not saying you're one, but if you happen to have a teacher in your building who might be lacking in the classroom management area, and they happen to have a paraprofessional, it's not the paraprofessional's position to go in and manage that class. That's a bigger issue. And we know that there are many paraprofessionals, you hear them talk about it all the time, who feel like they have to go in and manage a class, or the teacher specifically waits for that para to come to manage the class for them. And that's not 100% not what they're supposed to be doing. And if I were in that position as the para and the teacher felt that way, we would have a conflict all the time.
No, and it's illegal actually. In our state, when it's put on paraprofessional, because they're still in the paraprofessional label, it's illegal for the paraprofessional to deal with the behavior problems unless, once again, it has a special training specifically for that and it's assigned to a specific kid. So even with that, the paraprofessional kind of comes in to help you with that, but the teacher is the one that it's supposed to.
End of the day, exactly. Some other things that you might think about, she spoke about planning earlier. Include the paraprofessional in the planning.
Yes.
Or if the para can't at your time of planning come to your planning, pick a time when you can sit down with that person and say, here's what we planned, here's what we're going to do, this is what I need you to do, this is what I'm going to set aside for you. and so forth and so on, so that they're at least aware. So they're not walking in the door waiting for you to tell them what to do, because at the end of the day, it's your responsibility as the teacher of record to let them know what their responsibilities are. And I think that's another kind of misnomer that teachers have, that you're just going to walk in their door and know what you're supposed to do. Your name is the one that's on the little placard on the wall, so it's up to you to let that person know. So, if you're feeling flustered because the parent's just standing in the back of the room or they're not doing anything, that's really not their issue, unless you've communicated well with them to let them know, and they're just refusing to do what it is that you asked them to do, if it's within reason. So that's definitely a conversation that you must have with the person that's coming in to work with you.
And I just want to continue on that one. I have been in the situation when I work with you, and it has been a blessing. And then you go to another classroom, and the situation there is just like this. You expect me to do something, but I really don't know what it is. And even though I'm a very good paraprofessional, I really can't understand because you're not telling me anything. And then it just becomes for me sitting and working with one kid, because I can kind of follow what you're doing, but I don't know anything else. So that verbal communication is very important. Here's what I'm doing, here's how I'm doing it. The how is very important if you want the paraprofessional to kind of go the same way that you're doing, and they have the same strategies, the same applications, but you need to say it.
And it's funny that you say that. I remember back in the olden days when I was a teacher's aide, the reading lab and the math lab situation was new to our district. So we had a lot of visitors coming in to see how it actually worked. And I'll never forget, a teacher that I worked with, she was not big on talking to visitors. And so I always felt like, well, then you're the teacher, I'm the aide. So when these people come in, I'm fading into the background, because you're the one that should be talking to them, answering the questions, so forth and so on. And she would never do it. And it just astounded me that whenever we would have these visitors come in, she would make herself almost invisible and direct them to me to answer questions, to just, tell them what this program was about and that kind of thing. And I was always so frustrated thinking, but I'm not the teacher. I'm the teacher's aide. I'm not supposed to be answering these questions and so forth and so on. But after, a year or two of this happening, I just got used to it, and I just knew if we have some visitors, she's not saying a word. Once the introductions are over, she's going to leave it to me to do all those things. And that could be very frustrating to a paraprofessional today, which is why you need to have a conversation to know, you're the teacher, I'm not. I didn't have a problem with it. I was comfortable with it, but there was never a conversation had. It just kind of happened, caught me off guard in the beginning, and then I just knew to expect it.
Which I think if you have that conversation and you just straightforward explain, I'm uncomfortable with that, would you be willing to help me? There will not be any kind of problem, but just kind of hiding behind, because once again, remember, you're the teacher. This is your classroom. You're the face for these kids, so you have to step up. As a paraprofessional, I loved it when I was put in the same level as a co-teacher, but when those situations presented, I wanted to know how much I can say, how much I cannot say, where did I put that. So that, you kind of try not to, because you're not the teacher, and then you're not sure how much of a problem can be or not. So the clear communication with the paraprofessional needs to happen, and needs to come from part of the teacher.
Another thing that I read said that we should share our resources and our results with the paraprofessional. Because if they're an effective paraprofessional and they're really doing everything they can to assist you and the students in your classroom, when those students succeed, that paraprofessional had a hand in that succession. So we should definitely share those results with the para. And we should not expect for them to come in with their own resources. Again, it's your class. You know what you want them to do. So you should be sharing resources. They should not have to be rely on bringing their own things all the time. I mean, other than pencils or pens or maybe something like that. Like I have specific markers that I choose to use. I might want to carry that around with me. But you shouldn't expect them to walk in with a bag of tricks. Unless they're that kind of a person and they just happen to have them, that's not something that you should expect them to do. So share the resources, share the results. If you want them to grade papers and that kind of thing, which I think that's a bad use of your paraprofessionals. Personally, I think that's a bad use of them. But if you want them to do those kind of things, have that together.
That's another conversation, but I right now I don't think it's necessary. First of all, with the use of different ways of grading, but it's kind of waste of the paraprofessional time and using the classroom, because those people can help. They really can help. And the other thing that I was following. Use the result, share the results, share the materials that you have, but then share your strategies in your methodology. So that way your paraprofessional follows you and your kids don't have different ideas and different strategies. So the paraprofessional is eager to do that because it's easier for everybody.
Right, and that happens in planning. So, which is why it's important that you plan with your paraprofessional. Now, let's flip the script. Let's talk to the paraprofessionals, because we know we have some overzealous people. And paraprofessional, you have to understand, it's not your class. At the end of the day, it's not your class. You're not the teacher of record. So, let's not be the paraprofessional that goes to Miss M's class and then leaves Miss M's class and have full-blown conversations with other people about how terrible she is as a teacher and how you could do so much better, because that's never going to work out well. That's never going to work out well. So just like we want to be respected as teachers, we know that you want to be respected too, and it goes in reverse. So you want me to respect you, but you leave my room and run to admin or run to whomever and speak poorly of me. That's going to cause some conflict. So we know that the same thing that teachers do to paras that paras don't like, it can be said in reverse. So we don't want whomever might be looking to think we're just giving all of the kudos to the teachers and none to the paras, or vice versa. It goes both ways. The same things that we expect from the teachers, paras, we expect the same thing from you. It has to go both ways.
Both ways. And my take with the paraprofessionals, my time as a paraprofessional, you are not the authority in this classroom, and when you go in and try to take care and take over the classroom, you actually undermining the teacher of this classroom, which is never a good idea. Never a good idea. You are there as a paraprofessional and as a help. You're not there to show the kids and other teachers and administrators around how this teacher cannot do the job, because it's really not true. And even if it was, not on you to take care of the situation or to take care of how to resolve the thing. It's not on the paraprofessional. So just back up. If there is a need of help, straightforward, ask. Same thing. Do you need me to help you with that? And then go ahead and help. But don't do it just like this, because it undermines the teacher in the classroom.
Exactly, and it's not going to make for a good relationship. So if you happen to have a teacher who's very organized, they've communicated well with you, they've laid everything out for you, they've given you your spot in the classroom, everything is there prepared, and you choose to just not do it because it's not how you want to do it or it's not what you wanted to do, I have to say that you might be out of line on that one. you might be a little bit out of line on that one.
I agree. Once again, not your classroom. You're not the authority in the classroom. It's the teacher. And ultimately, you're there to help the teacher, to help the kids. That's it.
And I don't think there's too much more we can say about that. It's a relationship that's a two-way street. Like a marriage or something.
Yes. Yes.
Right.
And
if that's a parent,
I know.
then okay, maybe it's like a parent and a child. It's a two-way street. You know,
Mm-hmm.
we gotta have open communication and we have to work together. So if we don't have those two things, it's gonna be a train wreck in the end. Somebody's gonna leave not feeling like they did.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's communication. We both said that I don't know how many times
Right.
already, but talk to each other, tell you stories, tell you what you know and what you can do, getting kind of a middle ground, and just think that sometimes you spend more time with that person
Right.
through the day that you spouse. So it's a very interesting relationship,
Right.
and it will be one of the most beneficial relationships in your classroom with that person. So I think it's how you're approaching it,
Right.
and the respect both parties are putting in that relationship.
And I'll say as a teacher, make sure that if you do have a really good paraprofessional, that you let them know how much you appreciate them being there, that you let them know how much you appreciate what it is that they do for you. Because at the end of the day, that's something, they don't have to do. They don't have to do as well as they do, and they can choose to do it with somebody else. So appreciate your para if you should have one. And I think that's going to wrap it up for us talking about paras. And as we say every time, if you have a comment or you have a question or you'd like for us to discuss it further, go ahead and put that in the comments below or send us an email, which you can find our email on the link. So now we're going to talk about what's happening now. And of course, my legal eagle over here absolutely has something she wants to share, talking about teachers and money.
Teachers and money. We want those.
Yes.
Right now in our state, we have 3 different bills in the Senate that are directly related to education. We started talking about that increase in teacher salary. It went we're going to give them $10,000. Then it was a $5,000 for them for 2 years. Now it's getting back. But the new version, the rewriting of this House bill, it's starting to look like whatever increase in salary is going to be there, it will be tied to performance on the standardized test.
Merit pay,
which my stand up and point of view of this is a big no. Let me say that again, no. It's unfair. It's something that does not apply to every single school.
Absolutely.
And it will undermine the teachers that are actually working in the schools that really need help.
Right.
And they're working with the most, with the populations that need most help. So keep looking at that. Look at what it. I'm not going to encourage you to start calling. Yes, your representatives. This cannot be. It's bad idea when teacher salary is attached to a merit pay.
I agree. And I'm just going to throw this out here. And I don't know what state some of you may be from. We're in Texas. So, we're in our own little world here in Texas. But even though she says, I'm not going to suggest that you call, if that is an issue for you, and my own opinion, it should be an issue for you that your pay should not have anything to do with testing, because we know all the problems with standardized testing that we're having all over this country. And so my pay should not be held up because of, I'm trying to find the right politically correct word, because of a biased state test. So I'm going to suggest that you start really thinking about calling, like she said, your legislature and letting them know how you feel about that.
Calls and emails, try to leave voice messages. It's not Twitter, it's a big thing,
Right.
to get in contact with your representatives and whoever is on your district in the Senate. My concern started with, we're going to give that merit pay to the classroom teachers, and my first reaction was, oh, hold on, so special education teachers are not considered, really? And then it just went to classroom teachers and librarians, but then was also the art teacher is not getting anything. It just so not inclusive. It just puts everybody. What happens with the teachers that are teachers in grades that are not tied to standardized testing? It just doesn't make any kind of sense to me. And on top of everything, it's kind of looks like right now it's going to be tied to the cap of the taxes. So it becomes, I have a cap of property taxes, but you have to give more money to the teachers. Where is it coming from? How is it? It just does not look very clear at this moment. The one thing is, no merit paid. That's my stand. No merit paid. No.
Because when you think about merit pay, what kind of motivation is merit pay if I happen to work in a district or part of a district where it's historically at the bottom and I'm doing the best that I can? Of course, you know, they always want to put it on, it's our fault because kids are not performing on tests, when we know there are 1,000 different variables that cause kids to maybe not pass the test. But what is my motivation going to be if my pay is attributed to how well kids do on the test? What is going to be the motivating factor to get people coming in? Because I'm soon to retire, period, point blank and period. I'm trying to retire. I'm going to retire. When we leave, what's the motivation to get the best of the best to come into education, to further take our students where they need to go?
No.
There's no incentive in that.
No. And it makes no sense to me, because at the end of the day, we're professionals. We're probably the only professionals that we are almost taught even how to walk. It's amazing. But if you consider us as a professionals and a dentist, really how much the dentist is going to get as a pay depends on how many times the patient brushed their teeth. It really not, and when we're talking about kids and standardized testing, I'm going to open a parenthesis. In some point, we're going to talk about the test eventually.
Yes.
Close the parenthesis. But they're kids.
Right.
You don't know. It's one day. Maybe they had a bad night. Maybe they're stressed out. Where you can judge the kid and the teacher because of this test.
You can't.
And my paycheck is not.
No, it shouldn't be.
No.
So we'll leave it with that. And again, we say any comments that you might have about that, go ahead and put those in the comments, and we would love to hear what you think about those. So this is Vinay and
Rumi.
And we're signing out from Two Tired Teachers.
Bye. See you next time.